Welcome back to Science for Everyone with Tom Copeland. I'm Tom Copeland. Let's get down to science. Okay, so in this video, we're talking mainly about ionic bonds, but I think it's important to also talk about covalent bonds so you can see the difference real quick. And I have a video or two about covalent bonds if you want to learn more. So a covalent bond is where the electrons are shared, and that's usually or always with nonmetals. An ionic bond is where one atom loses electrons and the other gains electrons. And then we have a positive ion known as a cation and a negative ion known as an anion. So that's what we're going to focus on today is what is an ionic bond? And again, real quick, if it's a covalent bond, they share electrons, it's with nonmetals. And in the naming, they use number prefixes. For ionic bonds, if it's a metal, it loses electrons, and the nonmetal gains electrons, and there's no number prefixes. And of course, we need to know what an ion is. An ion is just an atom that has either lost electrons or gained electrons, and it has a positive or a negative charge because of that. So let's take a quick look at the periodic table because the periodic table is always important and always useful in science, especially chemistry. So let's not forget that most of the periodic table is made of metals. And those metals, for their valence electrons, most of them have 3 or less valence electrons. Now for the nonmetals over here, with carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, all of those, most of those have 4 or more valence electrons. So that's really important in order to understand ionic bonds. So if you have a metal and a nonmetal, the metal always has less valence electrons, and the nonmetal always has more valence electrons when you compare it to the metal. So it makes sense for a metal to lose electrons in order to become stable, and then a nonmetal will gain electrons in order to become stable. So sodium here has 1 valence electron. They can lose that electron, and then they drop down to this lower energy level, and sodium will be stable. Chlorine has 7 valence electrons. So if chlorine gains only 1 valence electron, then chlorine will also be stable. So again, it makes sense for sodium to lose its electron, and chlorine will gain that electron. Now, sodium now has a positive charge because normally there's an equal amount of protons and electrons. But when sodium loses that electron, now it has 1 more proton and it becomes positive. Now, chlorine has a negative charge because it has gained 1 extra electron. So to summarize, ionic bonds are always between a metal and a nonmetal. The metal's going to lose an electron or more than 1 electron, and the nonmetal is going to gain electrons. So let's look at this other example. We have lithium and fluorine. Lithium is going to lose its electron. It drops down to this lower energy level. It becomes stable. Fluorine gains that electron, and now it is also stable, and we have lithium fluoride. Now we have one more example because the first two were very similar. Here we have calcium. It is in the second group on the periodic table, so it has 2 valence electrons. In order for calcium to be stable, it needs to lose those electrons. So it's going to lose 1 electron to this chlorine, 1 electron to this other chlorine atom, and now chlorine becomes stable and calcium is stable as well. So this would be calcium chloride. So I hope this video has helped you understand ionic bonds, and just remember, science is for everyone.